You now are listening to the audio podcast of Prisoners of Hope, the antidote to what ails your heart. I'm your host, Dr. Debbora Whitson. So come on in, pull up a chair, and open up your mind as you get ready to receive the download that hope will bring. Well, welcome. Hey, hey, hey. It is a great day. And I am Dr. D. And today we're going to be talking about perspectives, okay? And I entitled it The View from Here, which suggests that there is some of the scene you don't see because you're just viewing it from here. The view from here always has a gap between what we see and the full story that God knows. What you don't see, the gap between where you are and where you would like to be, the gap between asked and answered prayers. Today, we're going to look at how our perspectives are skewed. Our vision of the gap and reality is skewed because of our perspective. The Bible tells us that His ways are above our ways. Matter of fact, in Isaiah 55, verse 9, it says, just as high as the heavens are higher than the earth, so his ways are higher than your ways, and his thoughts are higher than your thoughts. So buckle your seat belts and get ready for a perspective, the view from here. So what does Isaiah 55:9 mean? That his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are greater than our thoughts. What does it mean? Well, it means that God has infinite thoughts. He has infinite thoughts, and they're greater than our limited capacity to comprehend. Okay. The psalmist in Psalm 139, verse 17 says, how precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast the sum of them. So the psalmist recognized that God's thoughts are vast. God's thoughts, He always does things that make our life better and things that are in line with His purposes. Sometimes His ways don't make sense to us. You're like, well, that didn't make sense. Okay. But you can rest in the knowledge that His ways are always good. And therefore, everything He does is good. And you can look at Psalms 13, verse 6, and Psalms 100, verse 5. So regardless if we don't understand our limited capacity to comprehend, God is on the throne. We don't have to worry about tomorrow because He's already there. But He gives you enough grace for today. Since we're human, we always strive to understand or to comprehend what's happening. And we try to use that same human, earthbound logic on God. And what happens when we try to understand and comprehend God's way? Well, first of all, you're going to get very frustrated because it says in Isaiah that His ways are higher than our ways. His actions often do not make sense to our earthbound minds. They don't make sense at all. I dropped a session a couple months ago called Unanswered Questions. And one of the unanswered questions is why? Why, God? Why is this happening to me? Well, He usually does not answer that. Okay. And if He does, it's woven into your experience over time. If He was to explain why, remember, God is not on our plane. He's doing all these different things. We can't even describe God's thought patterns because they're way beyond our ability to comprehend. So if He was to explain to us what He was doing, we'd probably be frustrated. We'd probably be downright frustrated. So stop trying to do that. Your understanding also, when you try to emphasize on trying to figure out, well, why did God do this? Your understanding is very skewed because your perspective creates your perception. It means that everybody sees a different truth because everybody is creating what they see. Your understanding is incorrect, it's blurred, it's fuzzy. There's an old saying that a dog in a hunt does not know he has fleas. The dog's perspective is in the hunt. Therefore, he doesn't perceive that he has fleas, right? I experienced this recently. I had my hip replaced. Hip was hurting so bad, and now I'm in rehab. It was replaced like a couple weeks ago, so I'm still in the middle of rehab. Prayers needed, and real interesting. Some of my girlfriend called me and said, "Well, you had shingles last year. So tell me, do you still feel that pain from shingles? Because it was going on a long time, even before my hip was placed." And I stopped and I thought, and I go, "Well, I'm trying to recover from a new hip, so my perspective is right on that hip aching. I can't really tell you whether the shingles are bothering me anymore." Because my focus is there. My perspective creates my perception, which means a lot of times what you perceive is incorrect. Isn't that scary? The third reason why, or what happens when you try to comprehend God and God's ways, is that your understanding is limited, like I said, by your plane of existence. God occupies a higher plane than our human mind can go. From Earth, and if you're here at Earth and you're looking up, we only see confusion. We don't understand why this happened. We don't understand why this person left. We don't understand why you had this accident. We don't understand why you're going through these struggles. But from the view from heaven down, we can see a plan unfolding. So there's a different viewpoint. From heaven up, you're confused. From the ground up, you're confused. From heaven down, you can see a plan being woven. In God's higher ways, everything happens for a reason. It will be woven into the fabric of God's plan for your life, for those who love Him, okay, and who are called according to His purpose. I think that's Romans 8:28. Another thing that happens when you try to comprehend God's ways is that you miss things in your quest to comprehend the incomprehensible. Say that again several times. You will overlook the many miracles that are present. Despite all we know, that in all things, God works for the good. Now, that's Romans 8:28. But a lot of people say, well, it says all things will be good. No, it doesn't say. It said all things will work for the good of those who love Him and who have been called according to His purpose. So it's all about His purpose. So comprehend that. Stop being frustrated. Stop demanding what you see is what reality is. Your perspective comes your perception. Understand you have a limited understanding. Your understanding is very limited, and you will miss miracles. If you're trying to focus on how to figure out God, you will miss a lot of things. So, the view from your location most likely obscures the whole story that heaven knows. Well, you ask, well, how do I bridge the gap between my beliefs, my perspective, my thoughts, and God's provisions? How do I bridge that gap? Well, there's only one way. Faith bridges the gap between your beliefs and God's provisions, okay? Because you have to believe, first of all, you have to know what God says, and you have to believe what he says, okay? You have to trust. A lot of people use faith and trust interchangeable. You have to rely on that information, so you trust it. And a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I don't have faith. I don't." Wait a minute. Okay, so if you work for a living, and I was a college professor for years, we only got paid once a month. So I had to have faith for about 26 days, right? My money ran out at the end of the month. I had faith that that paycheck was going to be there. Well, I get paid twice a month. Okay, twice a month. Or what about sitting in a chair that you know it's there? You rely on the sturdiness of that chair. You rely on the presence of that chair to be there. So don't play with me. You do have faith. You just got to place your faith in the right thing. Okay? Place your trust. Rely on the correct things. So remember, faith is the key that bridges the gap between where you are and where God wants you to be. As you take in the view from your location, I want you to always remember there is a gap between what you are currently seeing and the full story that God knows about you. Well, tune in next time when we'll discuss strategies to help us build our faith muscles. It is a muscle, it has to be exercised. You got to build it. You got to build it. Unfortunately, the bad side is that faith occurs when the fall is present. So everything's going fine. You don't have to have faith in anything, right? But your faith is built when there's a possible fall, right? In the Bible, a lot of the people of the Bible, if you look at Paul, who was Saul, when Jesus knocked him off his donkey, whatever he was riding on that road, that's when he began to have faith and follow. He was knocked off his pony by a bright light, the holy presence of God. And he was blind for a while too, until God restored his vision. So again, tune in next week. So we'll talk about strategies to increase your faith muscle. God bless. My hope is that this journey has been fruitful and you're able to take it and apply it to your life. Until next time, tune in again for the Prisoners of Hope podcast. God bless.